Episode 5, we made it. Got a great show today, going to be talking Bitcoin. Special episode with some very special, very rare Bitcoin. But first, a few quick current events. On August 31st, in a joint report from the USA and United Kingdom, agencies connected to the Five Eyes Alliance warn of a new malware called Infamous Chisel they have been watching, apparently being used by the Russians against the honorable Ukraine military. But it made Bitcoin news as Infamous Chisel appears to specifically target a couple of different Android wallets, including Coinbase and Binance. What can you as an individual do to protect yourself? Well, they don't say. I guess just don't use Android phones and be mad at Russia. Moving on, a user, Robin4Days, is attempting to write the word Bitcoin 21 million times. Is this real? Well, it is something that could be faked, but I don't think he is lying. I think it's legit. Insane and stupid goal, so shout out to him. Real proof of work. Supposedly, with the pace he's on, it will take more than 50 years to complete. But gotta respect it. There's this musician, Sufjan Stevens, who said he was going to make an album for all 50 states that I'm reminded of. Sufjan was not able to complete this, but sometimes it's the journey more than the final destination. Check out Robin4Days on Twitter and his writings on Medium. Lastly, according to mempool.space, this is the list of countries with the highest number of Lightning Network nodes, with USA, Germany, and France topping the list. But sometimes you have to consider population sizes when forming an opinion from statistics. So when you rank the countries per capita, you get a different picture, with Canada, Switzerland, and Singapore actually having the most passionate populace for Bitcoin Lightning. Regardless who's number one, interesting to see this stuff, and it's comforting to know an infrastructure is in place to use Bitcoin around the world in case of emergency. Now to our main feature, Rare Bitcoin. You might be thinking, are you crazy? You nuts? How can Bitcoin be rare? Aren't they all the same? Isn't this money supposed to create a world where we all play by the same rules? Well, the truth of it is Bitcoin is not very fungible. Not all Bitcoin are the same. This list is purely subjective, but I'll explain my reasoning. The first is cheating a little bit. These Bitcoin are not actually found on the blockchain. They exist only in the physical world. These are metal collectible coins representing Bitcoin that were made as a way for Bitcoin enthusiasts at the beginning to show off their passion and also scratch that itch to hold something tangible in their hand. Now, there's a great book by Elias Ahonen that details most of these physical coins from the early days, and it's really cool to see all of these unique and interesting coins made by people trying to make Bitcoin real. Some use precious metals like gold and silver. Some are loaded with a QR code to actually hold Bitcoin, and some are just very strange. But this one here is the first Bitcoin-themed coin to be produced and sold. You might have heard of Casascius coins, but those came a little later. This was actually the first, made by Michael Bruce from the UK and released June 28th of 2011. Kind of a messy design, too much going on for my liking, but because of the history, these are pretty sought after. 1,000 were made, but remember it was 2011, so who knows how many were lost or just thrown out. It's purely ornamental. No Bitcoin is loaded onto this. Those came later. Michael Bruce and his company MJB Monetary Metals in 2012 produced this design, which might look more familiar to you. This design became so popular that it's basically become the standard. Any piece of writing or news media, you search Bitcoin, this is coming up. China began producing just loads and loads of these coins with this design, as did many others, which is why now if you go on Amazon, you can purchase one for just a few dollars. But the original coins from 2012 are still able to be found. One way to distinguish an original is Bruce's coins were copper. And these copycats typically will be just some alloy covered in a gold or a silver coating. Another important piece of Bitcoin history. But as I mentioned, a few months after Bruce, a user from the Bitcoin Talk forums, Casascius, began producing and selling high-quality coins. And these were not just ornamental. These could be used to represent actual Bitcoin. Mike Caldwell from Utah, aka Casascius, really became the gold standard for physical Bitcoin. Using a special hologram sticker on the back to cover the private key, you could keep your money safe. As long as that sticker remained unpeeled, you could, in theory, use this as a medium of exchange. Use physical Bitcoin in the physical world. A large number of Casascius coins were made, thousands more than some of these more obscure manufacturers. But to this day, they continue to have a higher price premium just because of the name, because of the brand. Smaller production runs from other manufacturers technically are more scarce, but they never quite get the demand of Casascius. The most sought after Casascius are the original batch. Something that makes them pretty unique was this first set contained a printing error. Casascius was not spelled correctly. The production company messed up the printing, so an easy way to tell if you have a coin from the original batch is if it's missing an S. And even more rare is out of these original batch, 5 had their sticker characters on the back printed too high. Typically it's right in the middle, but a select few got it printed up on the top. These double error coins are the ultimate find for a collector. Only the most degenerate Bitcoin historians would care about something like that, but it's still pretty cool. If you're wondering why you don't see more of these loaded Bitcoin coins these days, well, 2 things became an issue. One is obviously the market price. 1 Bitcoin is now just worth way too much to be on a coin. It's not realistic to use for payment. And 2, Bitcoin is no longer a niche thing ignored by the government. If you try to sell physical Bitcoin, if you try to sell any Bitcoin, you are considered a money transmitter. And that title comes with all kinds of responsibilities people just didn't want to or can't deal with. So if you're going to be a big spender these days and buy physical Bitcoin, it's going to most likely require you to load it with Bitcoin yourself after the purchase, as there's just too much regulatory heat to be an unlicensed money transmitter. Ramping up now, if you're looking for something big, we're going to escalate both in rarity and size. As I said before, in a space where you're not supposed to trust anyone, the Casascius name was able to build trust. And people trusted that if they dropped money on this thing, they were going to get what they paid for. So the highest denomination sold was a whopping 1,000 Bitcoin coin. Just completely insane to think about. Whatever the Bitcoin price is now, just add 3 zeros to it to figure out the value of this thing. And then add on the rarity of it being a collectible. You know, who knows what the market would pay for something like this. And I happen to have one. No, I don't. But imagine if I did. It can actually get even crazier, though. This coin I'm going to show you is actually the first 1,000 Bitcoin coin made, the prototype. So even among collectors who have 1,000 Bitcoin pieces, this is a unique one of one. And Mike sold it to a collector during a Las Vegas convention. And allegedly, this guy sold it for $1 million in 2013. Probably feeling like he hit the jackpot. But before you make fun of him, if you bought something for about $6,000 and could sell it for $1 million, would you do it? So, it can't be too hard on him. But who knows what this could be worth now. Just an amazing piece of history that happens to also be the most expensive coin in the world. Forget about ancient coins from Rome, or the silver coins that killed Jesus, or some magic Egyptian alien coin. If I had to pick the most expensive coin of all time, it's got to be the prototype 1,000 Bitcoin Casascius. Now, the Genesis block produced 50 Bitcoin that should be considered on any list talking about rare Bitcoin. But those coins do not really count. As mentioned in my Lost Bitcoin video, for reasons unknown, Satoshi did not program the Bitcoin client to recognize these first 50 coins. So for all purposes, they are gone. You cannot touch them without hard forking the entire Bitcoin blockchain. If they can't be spent, it's really outside the scope of this video. It's just a hypothetical. The true OG coins, in my opinion, the real Genesis, are the 10 coins Satoshi Nakamoto sent to Hal Finney on January 12th, 2009. Those are the Bitcoin origin story, the very first Bitcoin transaction, involving the two most important men in Bitcoin. To have some of those in your possession would just be really cool. If there was an actual Bitcoin museum, that's a no-brainer to be in there. Having one or all of those wouldn't make you rich the way it would be to have the 1,000 Bitcoin coin, but this isn't about that. It's about being able to pat yourself on the back that your magical internet money is more magical than someone else's. So with that in mind, what's at the top of this scale? Well, in 2021, Bitcoin quietly had a soft fork, the Taproot upgrade. Only recently have people started to take advantage of Taproot and do some provocative stuff on the Bitcoin blockchain. As you may already know, there are 100 million pieces of each Bitcoin on the blockchain. 100 million satoshis for each Bitcoin. But what some insane people have started to do now is number these satoshis in order from 1 to 100 million, track them, and start picking out the very first satoshi, calling it an uncommon, a rare satoshi. Is it arbitrary? Yes. Does the first satoshi do anything different than the second satoshi? No. But humans are afflicted with this disease of collecting. And the rare Satoshi has emerged as something for collectors to go after. It's like any other form of collecting. Certain years, certain unique pieces have the same function as another piece, but the rarity makes collectors willing to spend a premium. To get a sense of these satoshis, there are about 2.1 quadrillion satoshis altogether, making them not very scarce at all. In fact, they're the opposite of scarce. 21 million Bitcoin, so it makes sense there'd be this huge number of satoshis altogether. There are actually almost 7 million blocks in the blockchain that will produce Bitcoin. So each of those moments gives a chance, an opportunity to get that first satoshi, the uncommon satoshi we just spoke about. Going further, there's only 3,437 opportunities to get a rare satoshi from the difficulty adjustment. Only 32 halvenings, so only 32 chances to get that sat, and 5 times that the halvening happens to line up with the difficulty adjustment for the obscure, arguably legendary sat. I don't really like this chart, as the Genesis block satoshis are not spendable, but it does give us a sense of the numbers involved. People have also identified novelty satoshis, such as from the Laszlo pizza purchase or satoshis from other important historical events in Bitcoin. To me, the rarest satoshi that will ever exist is the last one. Bitcoin rewards cut in half every few years. Cut in half, cut in half. You know, getting towards the end, blocks are going to have just 4 satoshis being produced, then just 2 satoshis, and finally 1 satoshi. Block 6,929,999 will produce the very last satoshi. And this will happen more than 100 years from now. So just try to imagine how much power, electricity, manpower, brain power will lead up to mining that last satoshi. More than 100 years of work. It's going to be hard to comprehend what the world might even be like then. You know, you might be paying in Bitcoin to get on some rocket ship that's going to leave Earth behind. Assuming humans are still around, that tiny bit of Bitcoin is not going to be worth 0. I suspect that satoshi is going to be worth a lot. The final piece of Bitcoin, by default, making it the hardest one to get. So, lots to think about. There you go. Some rare Bitcoin. You know, but to be honest, all satoshis are special. You're special. Thanks for watching.
Love, exciting and new. Come aboard, we're expecting you.